if you would put us on, oh great, we're on YouTube. So good afternoon, everybody. I'm State Senator Kathy Breen, and we are beginning today our public hearing on the governor's proposed biennial budget. And we are joined today by our colleagues on labor and housing, and they will be joining us today. We'll be discussing the parts of the budget that fall into that policy arena. So before we start, I would love for committee members to introduce themselves. Senator Rafferty, would you like to lead that, or shall I have people raise their hand? What works for you? You're gonna have to unmute yourself because I can't hear you. There you
go. What I'll do is we kind of have an order, so I'll go for myself, and then I'll pass it along to Representative Sylvester, and we'll go in succession from there. Thank you.
Thank you.
So my name is Joe Rafferty. I am Senate District 34, which is down in York County, and I am the chair of Labor and Housing. Representative Sylvester.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Representative Mike Sylvester. I represent District 39, which is the Eastern Peninsula portion of Portland and the islands of Casco Bay, and I am the House Chair of Labor and Housing.
Thank you. I'm just going to go by windows. It's easier for me. Representative Bradstreet, please.
Yes, good afternoon. I'm Representative Dick Bradstreet, representing House District 80. That's comprised of Vassalboro, Windsor, Somerville, and part of Augusta. And I'm the House lead on the Labor and Housing Committee.
Thank you, sir. Representative Pebworth.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Sarah Pebworth. I represent House District 133, which includes Blue Hill, Brooksville, Brooklyn, Castine, Sedgwick, and the town of Surrey.
Thank you. Representative Geer.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Tracy Geer, and I represent House District 9, which is Kennebunkport and Coastal Biddeford and Kennebunk.
Thank you. Representative Rader.
Hi, I'm Amy Rader. I represent District 125, which is a portion of Bangor.
Thank you. And I am jumping to the next page, looking for more of my committee members, and not seeing any. I do know that our analyst, Steve Langland, I did see his name on screen. Thank you, Steve, for attending. I don't see other members at this time. Senator Breen, I'm good.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So I'm going to have appropriations members introduce themselves, please. And I will start with Representative Fay.
Lost my unmute button there. I'm Representative Jessica Fay. I represent House District 66, which is parts of the towns of Raymond, Poland, and Casco.
Representative Corey. I'm going to move on to Representative Cardone and come back to Representative Corey because we can't hear you. Representative Cardone.
Hello, I'm Barbara Cardone. I represent House District 127, which is part of Bangor.
Representative Corey, are you ready?
Yeah, my earphones decided to take over at that exact moment. And I had to put them in. I am Patrick Corey, represent House District 25, which is part of Wyndham. And thank you, Madam Chair, and good afternoon.
Representative Hymanson.
Good afternoon. I'm Representative Patty Hymanson. I represent House District 4, which is parts of York, Wells, Sanford, and all of Ogunquit.
Representative Fecteau.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm Justin Fecteau. I represent House District 86, which is part of Augusta.
Representative Martin.
Good afternoon, it's John Martin, House District 151, from Allagash to Fort Kent, down through Route 11, all the way to Oxbow.
Representative Arata.
Good afternoon. My name is Amy Arata, and I represent House District 65, which includes New Gloucester and part of Poland.
I do not see Representative Cloutier. So I think, no Representative Cloutier. How about Senator Bailey?
Madam Chair, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Donna Bailey. I proudly represent Senate District 31, serving the residents of Saco, Old Orchard Beach, Hollis, Leamington, and part of Buxton.
Representative Millett.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I am Sowen Millett. I represent House District 71, which includes the citizens of Norway, Sweden, Waterford, and West Paris.
Senator Davis.
Thank you, Madam Chair. My name is Paul Davis. I represent Senate District 4, which is all of Piscataquis County and parts of Somerset and Penobscot.
And my co-chair, Representative Peirce.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm Teresa Peirce, House Chair of AFA, and I represent District 44, which is the majority of Falmouth. Representative Cloutier is in another committee presenting a bill, and she'll join us shortly.
And again, I'm Kathy Breen. I represent 6.5 communities from Cumberland County in the Maine Senate, and I serve as Senate Chair of the Appropriations and Financial Affairs Committee. For those of you who are joining us from the public, my co-chair brought up a good point. We are in that time of the session where some of us are in public hearings and some of us are off in other committees presenting our own bills. So if you see members of the legislature kind of coming and going this afternoon during our hearings, it's because we have obligations in other Zoom rooms. But rest assured, all of the testimony will come our way and get thoroughly examined. So before we start, are there any process questions or anything like that from any members of the legislative committees? Okay, if something comes up while we're working, feel free to do one of two things. Raise your hand with the raise hand function that's down at the bottom of your screen. If you bring your cursor down there, you'll see it. And then also, if that doesn't work for you, just give me a shout out, just, you know, Madam Chair, Senator Breen, whatever, and I will stop what we're doing and try to address the issue at hand. So we're going to go today through our agenda, and we're going to take, first we're going to take testimony from the Maine State Housing Authority, and then we will take testimony from Commissioner Fortman of the Department of Labor. And we're going to do those back to back, hear the testimony, then we'll do questions for those two entities from the committee. And then we'll take public testimony on those two items and anything else that's on the agenda for today. So without further ado, I welcome a familiar face to our room. That would be former representative and now representative of Maine State Housing, Eric Jorgensen.
Thank you very much, Senator. I appreciate being here. I hope you all got the cookies I sent. If you didn't, I'll make an effort to bring them when we are all back together at 2:28. It's a very strange experience doing this in this way, in this place. But you guys it's amazing to see how the legislature is handling this. Anyway, Senators Breen and Rafferty, Representative Peirce and Sylvester, and members of the Joint Standing Committees on Appropriations and Financial Affairs and Labor and Housing. My name is Eric Jorgensen. I'm Director of Government Relations at Maine Housing. Maine State Housing Authority is Maine's housing finance agency created by the legislature in 1969 to address the problems of unsafe, unsuitable, overcrowded, and unaffordable housing. We are authorized to issue bonds to finance single-family and multifamily housing for Maine's low and moderate income citizens. These bonds carry the moral obligation of the state. They're repaid from mortgage payments, not the general fund. And we're structured as an independent agency to utilize effective private methods of finance for public purposes, to be independent and responsive. We're also authorized to act for the state in administering several federal programs, including rental subsidies, weatherization and fuel assistance, 2 housing block grants, the low-income housing tax credit program, and homeless grant programs. We receive state general fund revenue for homeless programs and receive a dedicated portion of the real estate transfer tax for the housing opportunities for the home fund to support our programs. So we have 5 items in the budget starting on page A322. Now, can you all hear me all right? Is it all right? Everything good? Okay. So the first item is an initiative, and it eliminates the home modification certificate program. And it's on page A322. The 126th legislature passed a tax credit to offset the cost of making modifications to a home to make it accessible for a person with a physical disability or a hardship. The overall credit is capped at $1 million per year, and it's income-based and available to homeowners earning $55,000 or less. As we explained during our testimony on the supplemental budget earlier this session, we're proposing to eliminate that program to find savings as part of the governor's curtailment initiative. Now, we don't eliminate programs lightly, especially ones with purposes as important as paying for home accessibility modifications. That said, this program had a structural problem that hampered its effectiveness. The fact that most people in this income category do not itemize their deductions made this sort of a tax credit inaccessible to most of those who would qualify. I've consulted with members of our staff here and confirmed with them that we will continue to support this critically important type of work for people in this income category. We will now do that through direct grants offered as part of our Home Accessibility and Repair Community Aging in Place program. And we're currently working on a program redesign to assure that this type of aid will continue to be available for those who need it. But in the meantime, this program elimination will get you some extra money for the general fund. Moving on to our programs, the next item is the home fund, the Housing Opportunities for Maine Fund. That appears on page A323 as an other special revenue account. The home fund was created in 1983 to provide a dedicated and flexible source of funding for affordable housing. It's our largest, and I dare say most mission critical source of state revenue. It was created with the support of the realtors, the bankers, and others in the industry who got behind a doubling of the real estate transfer tax to provide that revenue. 10% of the tax stays with the county that collects it as an agent fee, and the balance is split between the general fund and the home fund. One of the unique features of the home fund is that when the real estate markets are hot and the people we serve need more assistance, the amount of money in that fund increases. And conversely, when the market is soft and rents and prices might be more affordable, we get less. The fact remains, however, that need always exceeds resources in this fund. Over the years, the legislature has repeatedly diverted resources from the home fund to provide funding for other things in the budget. That's not the case this year. And in this biennium, the governor and her staff, Commissioner Figueroa, and both of the committees here today joined housing advocates to work to hold the line on this commitment. The positive performance of the real estate transfer tax line has brought the home fund to an historic level, which is critical if Maine housing is to continue ramping up closer to its annual production goal of 1,000 units of new affordable housing in Maine each year. As you may know, financing each affordable housing project represents a unique puzzle. In addition to various forms of loan financing, in addition to the rent that's anticipated, it's necessary to have subsidy to close the gap and make the project work. That can come from state tax credits like the one passed last year. It can come from federal tax credits, or it can come as cash from sources like the home fund. So about 1/3 of the home fund is allocated directly to providing subsidy for affordable housing development. Another 1/3 or so goes to emergency home repair, home modification, and home ownership programs, especially those serving first-time lower-income home buyers who might need a little extra help in getting into their first home. Another 15 to 20% of the fund augments our support for homeless shelters, and the rest is available to respond to emergent short-term housing needs. Last year, for example, the home fund provided rent relief in a program that preceded the current federal one, as well as funds for repairs to supportive housing facilities. In the past, it's been used to deepen wells during times of drought and for other urgent one-time needs in housing. It's this flexibility that's the hallmark of the home fund, one that makes it so valuable. In this budget, with an intact home fund, we have an important tool to move closer to the goals expressed by the legislature to develop better, greener, and more affordable housing, and more of it. I should also point out that 100% of these funds go to the program. None is used for administration or overhead. The next item we're moving on is going to be the low income energy assistance program, also on page 323. The Public Utilities Commission created this program for the electric utilities, and they asked Maine Housing to coordinate the flow of funds among the utility companies and the community action agencies. At the time, there was some discussion about the state contributing funds to this as well, and that hasn't happened yet, but this account stands ready in the event that ever does. And that's the vehicle for that. So it's just a placeholder account. As a snapshot, however, the program recently served 21,261 households and was funded in the past, I think it's the past year, at $8,069,390. So $8 million worth of utility money went to needy households. It just doesn't track through the federal or the state budget system because it doesn't use state money. The next item is the Maine Energy Housing and Economic Recovery Program, or what are also known as Part E bonds. This program was created in 2009 by the Special Joint Select Committee on Energy and the Economy to construct or substantially rehabilitate energy-efficient, affordable housing to replace pre-1976 substandard manufactured housing units and to create jobs. We were authorized to sell $30 million or more in bonds per year with a cap of $200 million overall. But we only issue bonds at a level in this program to meet the level of debt service that's available from the state. Those bonds are repaid from the state share of the real estate transfer tax, and this line reflects the debt service for those bonds due over the biennium. We will be refinancing those bonds this year, and we are pleased to say that we expect that will provide the state with an unbudgeted savings of around $500,000. That'll be coming back to you, and that'll happen later in the year. That's not included here, but a little extra bit of good news that I thought I'd throw in. Finally, the last main housing item is the shelter operating subsidy, found on page A324. This general fund line helps support operating costs for emergency homeless shelters across the state. This line was first funded in 1988 at the level of $500,000. In the 126th legislature, an earlier version of the Labor and Housing Committee worked very hard to increase this appropriation to $2.5 million. And the Appropriations Committee has managed to keep that in the budget. The governor continues the funding in this year's budget proposal. We're very glad for that. I think it's important to note that Maine housing support of shelters goes beyond this line. In addition to this $2.5 million from the general fund, Maine Housing adds $1.3 million from HUD's Emergency Solutions Grant Program, which is federal funds that flow through us, not the state budget, and $3 million from the home fund, which we talked about earlier. And we combine all of these together to create the Emergency Shelter and Housing Assistance Program, which supports shelter operations and housing stabilization services statewide. It also includes a performance initiative or a performance incentive to help shelters find permanent housing for their clientele. And I just add that incenting permanent housing also helps the housing authority qualify for additional HUD money, which is partly based on our performance. So together, these sources form about half of the total cost for homeless shelters and domestic violence shelters across the state of Maine. So those are our budget items. We're very pleased with the section of the proposed budget this year. We are grateful for the governor for including us at these levels, and we appreciate your time and your interest in our programs. I'd be happy to try to take any questions I can answer. Thank you.
Mr. Jorgensen, would you be able to hang out a little bit while we hear from Commissioner Fortman about the Department of Labor and then come back to you for questions?
You bet.
Thank you very much. So we're going to move on to Commissioner Fortman. Welcome.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Senator Breen, Senator Rafferty, Representative Peirce, Representative Sylvester, and members of the Joint Standing Committees on Appropriations and Financial Affairs and the Labor and Housing Committee. My name is Laura Fortman. I'm the Commissioner of the Maine Department of Labor, and I appreciate this opportunity to present to you the 2022-2023 biennial budget for the Department of Labor. We had a little bit of internet instability here, so I've moved into a different office in our building, and I hope everything is working okay right now.
I'll give you a shout out if we lose you.
Okay, great, thank you. As Governor Mills said, at a time when Maine people are hurting, when small businesses are struggling to keep their doors open, when the ranks of the unemployed have swelled, and when we're fighting a deadly virus all around us, we are proposing balanced budgets as required by the Constitution that continue efficiencies, good fiscal management, and curtailments to cover projected revenue shortfalls for all 3 fiscal years. They focus on combating COVID-19 pandemic by continuing to rebuild the state's public health infrastructure and protecting essential healthcare, education, and life-saving services. They do not change Maine tax rates, and they maintain the Budget Stabilization Fund. With a future made unpredictable due to the ongoing pandemic, these budgets make good on the promise of government, which is to protect and support the well-being of our people and institutions. My staff and I have witnessed firsthand over the last 49 weeks the impact that COVID-19 has had on Maine people. The ranks of the unemployed did indeed swell, from 634 initial claims in 1 week to over 75,000 in the first 3 weeks of the pandemic. In 2019, the department paid unemployment benefits to about 34,000 people. In 2020, that number increased to over 165,000 people, more than the 3 years of the Great Recession combined. In March 2020, the department did not have the resources to respond to such a dramatic and rapid increase in the number of people needing our help. Last February, I was in front of you testifying about the department's supplemental budget request. At that time, we had enough federal funding to operate the unemployment program for 2/3 of the year. The access to one-time UI modernization funds and the approval of the unemployment program administrative fund closed that gap. Thank you for supporting the department's request last year. It will have a continuing positive impact on our ability to serve Maine people and businesses in the long term. This February, I'm testifying about the department's biennial budget proposal. This time, the budget is largely devoted to continuing efforts to respond to COVID-19. Much of what I'm about to describe involves changes to the personal services line category. There are several initiatives that continue limited period positions and adjust the funding composition of others. To simplify, a chart that summarizes these changes is included at the end of my testimony. I would like to break from the agenda slightly and start on page A366 of the budget document with the Employment Security Services Program, otherwise known as the Unemployment Program. The baseline budget for the Unemployment Program consists of 159.5 positions and totals about $31 million for operations of the program. An additional $174 million is provided for benefit payments from the State Unemployment Trust Fund. The first 4 initiatives in this program would continue through June of 2023, 145 limited period positions that have been established by financial order. These positions include eligibility agents, claims adjudicators, and fraud investigators. These positions are crucial to ensuring that the department can continue to process these critical unemployment benefits to eligible out-of-work Maine people. At the same time, the department must remain vigilant about program integrity and limit the impact of unemployment identity fraud. In addition to the continuation of these 145 limited period positions, the second initiative on page A367 establishes 5 new limited period accounting associate 2 positions and 1 new limited period business systems manager position, each of these through June of 2023. Combined, these initiatives total 151 limited period positions. These positions will help provide unemployment benefits to unemployed workers and assist Maine businesses with their unemployment accounts. I'm not yet asking for these positions to be made permanent. I know that some of these positions will be needed long-term, and over the next year, I'll be working with my team to identify a realistic staffing level that allows for flexibility in response to changes in the economy while being fiscally responsible. The next initiative in the middle of page A367 establishes 1 public service manager and 2 public service coordinator positions. The public service manager position will fill the role of a second deputy bureau director. The additional oversight provided by this position will help the department respond to the needs of unemployed workers. The public service coordinator positions will enhance the department's ability to optimize federal supplemental budget opportunities that can be used to improve services and to analyze data and implement policy and procedure changes to better serve both workers and businesses. The next initiative funds the reclassification of a vacant labor program specialist position to the business systems manager classification. The new classification will better support the department's efforts to continuously improve unemployment processes and systems. The next initiative on page A367 increases the other special revenue fund by $7 million to allow for expenditures in the unemployment program administrative fund. The administrative fund was established in statute last session to address the funding shortfall in the unemployment program. Funds will be used for staffing and other operational expenses of the program. The contributions for that fund begin this calendar year. The first deposits are expected at the end of April. Contributions to the fund reduce an employer's required contribution to the unemployment trust fund. Therefore, the fund is cost neutral. There is no additional cost to the employers for funding the unemployment administrative fund. I want to thank you again to both committees for your support for this funding for the unemployment program. The last initiative for the unemployment program is to increase the all other allocation in the trust fund by $76 million. This initiative would increase the annual allocation to the trust fund to $250 million. This increase will provide sufficient allocation for projected benefit payments in the coming year. That concludes the request for unemployment, and I'll move back to page A361 for the rest of the initiatives in the department's budget. So on page A361, you'll see that the total proposed appropriations and allocations for the Department of Labor. The general fund contributes just under $11.5 million each year to the services that the department provides. This equates to about 9% of the department's operations. The majority of funding comes from the federal government. Moving to page A362, the program is Administration, Bureau of Labor Standards. This program includes partial funding for the Bureau leadership. It also includes partial funding for data analysis that helps improve the health and safety of Maine's workplaces. The other special revenue fund in this program is the Wage Assurance Fund. The Wage Assurance Fund pays up to 2 weeks' wages to workers if their employer has gone out of business and does not have the funds to pay the final wages owed. There are no new initiatives in this program. The next program is Administration Labor, which provides funding for the administrative operations of the department. This includes the Commissioner's Office staff, as well as facilities management, cybersecurity, and business continuity planning, as well as internet and social media management. Also included here is funding for the staff who answer the department's general information telephone and email, and for the department's finance and human resources services provided by the Department of Administrative and Financial Services. The administrative costs in this program are funded through a federally approved indirect cost rate. This means that each fund and each program contributes a proportional amount to the department-wide administrative costs. The department's federal funding is countercyclical. When the economy is booming, our federal funding is low. When the economy declines, the need for our programs increases, and so does our federal funding. As our federal funding increased to help people during the pandemic, the federal program's proportion of administrative costs also increases. Therefore, the federal programs will pick up a larger percentage of the administrative costs. This shift to a larger proportion of federal dollars results in a smaller contribution by the general fund. Therefore, the department proposes shifting some of the cost for our finance and human resources services from the general fund to the other special revenue fund. And this initiative can be seen in the middle of page A363. Moving to page A364, you'll find the budget for the Blind and Visually Impaired Division, or DBVI. DBVI provides vocational rehabilitation, education, and independent living services to people who have lost part or all of their vision. This program provides necessary supports, adaptive aids and devices, and specific blindness skills training to assist adults in obtaining their career goals. In addition, DBVI services help children to fully participate in the classroom and assists older individuals with living independently and fully participating in their communities. There are two initiatives in DBVI. The first provides a $5,000 increase in the other special revenue account to expand services to children who are blind. The additional funding is provided through an agreement with the Department of Education. The second initiative shifts costs for one position between the general and federal fund and offsets the change in the all other line. There is no net impact to either the general fund or the federal fund. However, the change is needed so that the work that is performed by the position is paid for by the appropriate funding source and is consistent with the other positions in the same classification. The Employment Services Activity Program begins on page A369. This program invests in services for people who need assistance with the pursuit of their employment goals. Staff in the Career Center and in our partner agencies help people identify and pursue their employment goals. This includes the development of training and job search plans and support to turn those plans into actions. The path looks different for each individual. Some may find that an apprenticeship will work for them, while others may seek a certification or a degree. Others may find that they have the skills that they need, but are having trouble finding the right job. Sometimes they may need help with resumes or interview preparation. Means career centers and affiliated one-stop centers can help with each of these options. There are three initiatives in the Employment Services Activity Program. The first increases the federal allocation by $1,474,698 in the first year of the biennium. This initiative will provide for the expenditures against a U.S. Department of Labor dislocated worker grant that the department has received. This grant provides funding to hire COVID-19 peer support workers. These peer support workers connect with and assist workers impacted by COVID-19 who are struggling to return to the workforce. Services are focused on affected workers having the greatest difficulty with accessing resources, including those with limited English proficiency, limited computer literacy, or lack of access to technology, older workers, low-income workers, and those laid off from Maine's most affected sectors, as well as others identified as most in need. Peer support workers assess immediate needs and provide one-on-one assistance with applying for basic assistance programs and connection to employment and training services. This grant currently provides funding through June of 2022. The second initiative reallocates the funding for 66 positions between the different funds and between the different grants within the federal fund. This reallocation is made periodically as the composition and level of funding shifts within the employment services programs. This change will help ensure that positions are charged to the appropriate funding source for the work performed and will not impact how services are delivered. The final initiative in this program transfers one position from the Employment Services Bureau to the Labor Standards Bureau. The corresponding initiatives can be found on pages A373 and A377. The Director of Labor Outreach and Education serves as the State Monitor Advocate, which is a federally required position. In this role, the position is responsible for ensuring that migrant and seasonal farm workers are treated fairly in areas such as wages and housing, and that their work is safe. The State Monitor Advocate also works closely with migrant and seasonal farm workers to ensure that they have information on available services, such as career services and healthcare. This work is more closely aligned with the Bureau of Labor Standards, and I want to leverage all available resources to help ensure fair and safe workplaces throughout the state. The day-to-day work of the position has already been reassigned to the Bureau of Labor Standards. The transfer of the position in the budget is the final step in that reassignment. The next program is the Labor Relations Board, the budget for which can be found on page A371. The Maine Labor Relations Board works to foster the relationship between public employers and their employees. The board protects the rights and enforces the responsibilities established in Maine statute for our public sector employers. Employers include those in each branch of the state government, in our county and municipal governments, the university and community college systems, and at the Maine Maritime Academy. There are no proposed changes to the Labor Relations Board. Moving to page A372, you'll find the budget for the Permanent Commission on Racial, Indigenous, and Maine Tribal Populations. The commission was established in 2019. Even though the commission appears in the department's budget, it is an independent entity. The department provides minor administrative support. The commission's mission is to examine racial disparities across all systems and to specifically work at improving the status and outcomes for historically disadvantaged populations. When established, a placeholder allocation of $500 was set. Since its inception, the commission has been raising funds to begin its work. As such, an increased other special revenue allocation is needed to carry out the work. The initiative before you would increase the commission's allocation by $50,000 in each fiscal year. It is my understanding that separate legislation is being drafted to address the important functions of this commission. Moving to page A373, you will see the Regulation and Enforcement Program, which falls within the Bureau of Labor Standards. This program provides funds to help ensure that Maine workers are treated fairly on the job and paid appropriately for their work. The general fund account provides for the enforcement of Maine's labor laws. These include minimum wage, overtime, prevailing wage, employment of minors, and public sector safety and health. The federal account provides for occupational safety and health consultations with private sector employers. There are 2 initiatives in this program. The first shifts the cost of 2 occupational safety and health positions between the general fund and the federal fund in order to continue to provide services within the available resources. Federal funding for this work can support the increased share of the positions without detrimentally impacting services. The next initiative is the second part of the transfer of the Director of Labor Outreach and Education from the Employment Services Bureau. 60% of this position will now be funded through federal grants in the Regulation and Enforcement account. The Rehabilitation Services Program is next, and its budget can be found beginning on page A375. This program helps Maine people with physical, mental, and emotional disabilities obtain and maintain successful careers. It also partners with other agencies to provide services to those with more significant disabilities so that they can live more independently in their homes and communities. The Rehabilitation Services Program also contains the Division for the Deaf, Hard of Hearing, and Late Deafened. The division provides information and referrals and advocates for people who have hearing loss. There are 3 initiatives within this program. The first provides funding for the reclassification of an Office Assistant 2 to the Office Associate 2 classification. This reclassification is retroactive, so the funding in the first year of the biennium is higher than the ongoing cost that is represented in the second year. The all other line is reduced by a like amount in order to keep the budget within available resources. The second initiative reclassifies 2 vacant Office Associate 2 positions to the Rehabilitation Counselor 1 classification. The reclassification will increase the number of positions that provide direct vocational rehabilitation services. This results in an increased personal services cost of just over $11,000 in each fiscal year. The federal all other line is decreased in both years to offset the increase. The third initiative provides one-time funding for the continuation of the Transition Work-Based Learning federal grant through September 2021. This is the end of a 5-year grant that the department received from the U.S. Department of Education's Rehabilitation Services Administration. With this pilot program, staff within the Division of Vocational Rehabilitation have been working closely with Maine employers to determine best practices for students transitioning from school to employment as adults. This has allowed young people with disabilities to participate in work-based learning and to fully engage in Maine's workforce. The division has already begun to implement learnings from this project on a statewide basis and expects to continue these efforts with existing positions after the grant funding ends. The initiative continues 4 positions and provides all other allocation for contracts with our grant partners. Moving to page A377, you'll find the Safety Education and Training Program, which is operated through the Bureau of Labor Standards. Through this program, the department helps to ensure Maine's workplaces are safe and healthy ones. Staff typically visit workplaces across the state, advising employers on ways to improve safety and protect the health of the people who work there. During the pandemic, staff have continued to provide consultations virtually. In addition, the department operates a training lab in Augusta and periodically in other locations across the state. Classes at the lab include the OSHA 10-hour course, ladder and height safety, silica awareness, wage and hour compliance, and impairment detection. The full class schedule can be found on the department's website or by searching online for Maine Safety Works. There are 2 initiatives in this program. The first is the third component of the transfer of the Director of Labor Outreach and Education from the Employment Services Bureau. 40% of this position is funded through this program. The second initiative provides funding for the reclassification of a consumer assistance specialist to the labor and safety inspector classification. This new classification better reflects the work being performed and the needs of the program. The State Workforce Board program can be found on page A378. The board is responsible for assisting the governor in performing the duties and responsibilities required by the Federal Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act, or WIOA. The members represent the many facets of workforce development: business, labor, public education, higher education, economic development, youth activities, employment and training, as well as the legislature. By federal requirement, the board must be comprised of at least 50% employers. The budget is funded entirely through federal WIOA grant. There are no new initiatives in this program. The final program is the Workforce Research Program, which begins on page A379. The Center for Workforce Research and Information compiles and analyzes data affecting Maine's labor market. The center provides information on high wage, high demand jobs, income and wages, workforce demographics, and the unemployment rate. Information is used by state and local policymakers, employers, educators, trainers, and the public to make decisions that improve job and economic opportunities across the state. There are 3 initiatives within the Workforce Research Program. Each initiative shifts the cost of positions between the general and federal funds in order to help maintain services within available resources. The net impact is a reduction in the general fund of $30,551 in the first year and a reduction of $115,338 in the second year of the biennium. And that concludes my testimony for this afternoon's hearing, and I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have.
Thank you very much, Commissioner Fortman. So at this time, I'm going to see if any of the committee members have questions for either Mr. Jorgensen or Commissioner Fortman. Before we move on to some other people we have from the retirement system and various other folks. So if you have a question for either Mr. Jorgensen or Commissioner Fortman, please do your raised hand function. And in the queue, I have Representative Cloutier and Representative Fay. Representative Cloutier, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So this question is for Mr. Jorgensen. And I'm just wondering on the home modification certification program, and maybe you touched on this in your testimony, which I missed because I was not here at that time. Can you just talk about why that program is being terminated?
Yes, I did touch on it, but I'm very happy to talk about it again. That program we had to come up with some funding cutbacks to comply with the governor's order for curtailment. So that was we needed to find some money. That was the first part. The second part is that the program really wasn't working because it's a tax credit program and people who earn $55,000 or less don't typically itemize their tax returns. And so they weren't able to access the credit. So it was only having a couple of takers a year. And then the good news about this was that we were able to roll that in, that service, that function, those particular types of home modifications can now be done through our home HARP program, the home repair program, and those will be funded through direct grants instead of tax credits. So more people who need that kind of work will be able to get it done. So I think it's actually a win-win. The governor gets a savings, and we're able to make a better service or serve better people with these particular services.
And was the tax credit refundable or non-refundable?
I think it was not. I don't know that. I could find that out for you. I think it was non-refundable, but I'm not sure.
If you could find that out for the work session, that'd be great.
Sure.
Thank you so much.
Representative Fay and then Representative Arata.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And thank you both to Mr. Jorgensen and Commissioner Fortman. As a new member of this committee, it is always sort of amazing to me to learn about all of the different programs that we didn't necessarily know about before we got to this committee. So my question is for Commissioner Fortman on page A369. The employment services activity. I'm just curious about you mentioned the CARES Act funding to support workers who have lost their jobs and the work that board does. And I just was curious, are there any wage restrictions as we're talking about moving people from one sector to another when we're doing job counseling and career counseling and that sort of thing?
So thank you for the question, Representative Fay. So generally speaking, what we would be trying to do is provide information to people about high wage, high demand jobs. And that's part of the information that we would be providing to anyone. But is your question specifically about the dislocated worker grant that we received?
It is. And I think also maybe I should rephrase this. And I'm concerned about, I guess, low wage, high demand jobs, right? So we talk a lot about high wage, high demand jobs. And I'm just curious what happens when there's a high demand, and is there a way to are those counselors allowed to talk to people, or I guess that's the wrong word. Are they talking to people about non-high wage jobs as well, where there might be a high demand? Is that allowable under this grant funding? And you don't have to answer now. You can get back to me.
Let me get back to you with the specifics about this particular grant proposal. Thank you.
I appreciate that very much.
Representative Arata and then Representative Peirce.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Representative or former Representative Jorgensen, I guess you'll always be honorable, right? How much is in the home fund right now? And does that roll over from year to year?
Yeah, it does roll over from year to year. And I don't have the exact balance right now, but the problem with the home fund is sometimes looks like there's a surplus and there isn't, because the money is all sort of accounted for, but it doesn't always correspond with a state fiscal year. So I can get you an accounting of exactly how much is in that if you'd like. It's around, I don't even want to, I was told one time in the legislature, never do math on screen if you don't really know the answer, and I don't. So, but I think the amount you see in the budget here is about what is in a typical year.
If you could get me that, I think I'd be interested in knowing how much money is actually in the fund right now with the real estate market as it is. Also, I have a question for Commissioner Fortman with regard to the program for the blind. Do some of those funds flow through to the school districts for special ed services for blind students?
They do not flow to the schools. We have counselors at schools. I think the programs are very different, Representative Arata. The services that we provide are different.
So they're more labor related than therapeutic, would you say?
Yeah, I think that would be an excellent way of talking about it.
Okay. Can you tell me about how many people participate in the program?
I can get those numbers for you for the work session.
Yeah, I didn't expect you to have it right on the tip of your tongue, but I would appreciate that information. Sure. Thank you. I'm all set. Thank you.
Thank you. So in the queue, next I have Representative Peirce, and then in the queue, Representative Sylvester, and then Bradstreet.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I had one of my questions answered, so I'll just make the comment that I appreciate that the Honorable Mr. Jorgensen is always thinking about the AFA committee and providing us more money. So thank you for doing that. We miss having you around.
Can I add one thing, not about that, but I actually thank you very much, Representative Peirce. During the time when I was off the air, I had a visit. A lifeline came into me from outside and brought an answer to one of the earlier questions. Representative Cloutier's question about the refundability of the accessible me tax credit, and it was not a refundable tax credit. So that's the answer to that, and hope you're still out there, Representative Cloutier. Thank you.
Thank you. Representative Sylvester and then Bradstreet.
Thank you very much. First question is for the Honorable Mr. Jorgensen. And it's just to build off Representative Arata's information request. If we could also see where the money, if money is allocated to projects already, if we could see that amount, and also just get a breakdown of numbers of projects that were built during the year, and as best you can, some sort of timeline. All right, so the money is committed in this year, the project will be completed in 22 or 23, just to kind of get a sense of how much, what the inventory is that this amount of money actually builds towards our goal of 1,000 units, and then to be able to sort of see into the future where how that money is committed, and that would be very, very helpful.
Absolutely, I'd be happy to do that. I just say though that the home fund is one of many different things that contribute to those, as you know, contribute to those projects in terms of, it's the tax credits, the low income tax credits from the federal government, the state low income housing tax credit, other forms of subsidy are also really critical. So I'm very happy to provide that with a home fund, but think about it in the context of the much bigger picture of all the different ways that these development deals happen and close themselves so we can get the new buildings online. So sure, happy to do it.
Thank you. I think it's always amazing to me, one, how well this money is spent in terms of being able to provide the glue on a number of different projects, but also how little glue we have for the amount that we need to fill our goal of 1,000. And I appreciate that. Could I have a quick follow-up, Madam Chair?
Sure.
This one is for Commissioner Fortman, and it's just to follow up on conversation from the supplemental. As we're moving and building within the blind services, just that at that point, I'd asked you the question about whether or not a budget or a position that we hadn't been able to hire, which was eliminated in the supplemental, that was returned, and what would be the date that we would be reposting that position if it is in this budget?
Yeah, and that I believe would be reposted on July 1, Representative Sylvester.
Thank you very much.
Representative Bradstreet.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. I have a question for Commissioner Fortman, and thank you for being here today, Commissioner. Good to see you. It's kind of a general question. It's regarding those limited period positions. A couple of questions. Are those classified as employees or contract services? And do you anticipate a gradual phase down or a phase out leading up to June 10th, 2023?
Thank you for the question, Representative Bradstreet, and it's good seeing you too. That's what I believe will happen. Again, we are in uncharted territory, and that's why I did not want to put forward a firm recommendation about how many people we would need permanently. The intent is to do a careful evaluation moving forward. And I would anticipate that we would need fewer positions after that date, but these are limited period positions, and they are treated the same way as state employees are.
Thank you.
Any other questions for either Mr. Jorgensen or Commissioner Fortman? Not seeing any. So we will thank you both for joining us this afternoon and look forward to your follow-up answers to some of our questions. Thank you for coming. Bye-bye. So next on our agenda, we have 3 items. A report from the Treasurer's Office on something in particular, a report from New Ventures, testimony from New Ventures Maine, as well as the Workers' Compensation Board. So I am going to ask Treasurer Beck to join us. And if he's not here, let me see, is he here? I see the DAS Commissioner.
I was thinking I was meant to do.
Are you meant to do that?
Employees retirement system.
You're right, and I skipped over it.
Wow. You miss me when I show up on my screen.
I know. Well, I appreciate that. I went right over that. So glad you're here, and the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you. Good afternoon, Senator Breen, Representative Peirce, and members of the Joint Standing Committee on Appropriations and Financial Affairs, Senator Rafferty, Representative Sylvester, and members of the Joint Standing Committee on Labor and Housing. My name is Kirsten Figueroa, and I am the Commissioner of the Department of Administrative and Financial Services. I am here today to testify in support of the fiscal year 22-23 biennial budget bill, LD 221, specifically the item on today's agenda for the Retirement Allowance Fund. The Retirement Allowance Fund is on page A465 of the budget document. Title 2, Section 1A of Maine Revised Statutes authorizes the retirement benefit for former Maine governors and their surviving spouses. Title 4, Chapter 29, provides retirement benefits to judges who retired prior to 1984 and their surviving spouses. In accordance with both statutes, the Maine Public Employees Retirement System estimates the appropriation necessary to fund benefits payable from these pay-as-you-go plans each biennium. There are 2 initiatives in this program. The first initiative is an appropriation of $2,242 in FY22 and $6,637 in FY23 for retirement costs associated with retired governors and their surviving spouses. As with other system retirees, retired governors receive an annual cost of living adjustment, which increases the amount of benefits to be paid year to year. The second initiative is an appropriation of $140,713 in FY22 and $149,349 in FY23. In the previous budget, this account had excess funds for the pre-1984 judicial plan as a result of the passing of one of the beneficiaries, which were used to cover other beneficiary benefits. Those funds will be exhausted, however, going into this biennial. So this request is necessary to adequately fund the statutorily required benefit. The temporary use of those excess funds should have been one time, but they got inserted into the baseline. So that is the reason for this request, and we'll adjust the balance back up to what is needed. This concludes my testimony, and I'm happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Any questions on this item for Commissioner Figueroa? Not seeing any. So we will move on to Treasurer Beck.
Good afternoon, Senator Breen, Representative Peirce, Senator Rafferty, Representative Sylvester, and members of both committees. I'm State Treasurer Henry Beck, and I'm here to briefly present on initiatives that appear on page A484 of the budget presentation. That is the Kim Wallace Fund, also known as the Adaptive Equipment Loan Program, also sometimes known as Empower Loans. This appears with the heading from our office really because of the placement of the funds in the treasurer's cash pool, and because the treasurer is an ex officio member of this separate program. We do not administer the program per se, but as you can see on page A484, there is an initiative, a $2 million per year allotment for each fiscal year with a carry forward. And that's probably a bit eye-popping if you look at the previous years, but it's important to note this is a self-funding initiative. In 2019, this is essentially a reserve and operating fund for the program. It was previously held at FAME. It's come to the treasurer's cash pool as part of a cost-saving measure back in 2019. And this is simply an allotment per fiscal year in the event the funds are needed for the program. Otherwise, the program is essentially self-operating and self-funding. Just to give you some more detail about the program, it offers underwritten competitive rate loans for adaptive equipment for things like vehicle modifications, home modifications, hearing aids, any equipment needed to assist people live independently. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for Treasurer Beck? Representative Hymanson?
Thank you. Thanks for being here. How do you get the word out about this program?
It's a difficult task. We rely very much on our essentially a state vendor. AFA 1 is the administrator of this program, and we rely on we pay a monthly invoice for their services, and they're under a state contract. We rely on their staff and their services at trade shows, their relationships in the community with other lenders. We're attempting to increase business, if you will. Under the statute, we can loan to businesses to essentially become ADA compliant. That's a very, of course, important service. It's good for the portfolio to be lending to businesses, not just consumers. But we do our very best. There is interest in the program. It's still operating. It's been around since the 1980s. This is the consumer sector, so for rational reasons or not, loan applications went down. Of course, at the beginning of COVID, people were simply wary about taking on debt. And of course, these are loans, not grants. And so the purpose of the program is to make sure the need is met. If someone's not getting a grant for adaptive equipment or modification, this is another option.
Thank you.
Representative Cloutier, and then Representative Millett.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So the question was asked yesterday of another loan program about how many of the loans had gone into default. And I think that if we're going to ask that question of one loan program, we should ask it of the others. So I'm wondering if you either have that information available or if you could get it for the work session.
I have it in front of me, but how about I take a moment to get it to you and make sure it's all correct and clear. But yes, that's something we monitor at our quarterly meetings, and there are some in different stages, but for the most part, people are paying their loans, but I'll get that information for you, certainly.
Thank you very much.
Representative Millett.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Treasurer Beck, could you remind us of the original source of the OSR funds? And assuming that it is a revolving loan fund, could you update us in work session with the income and outgo and the current status of the fund?
Yes, well, I mean, I can tell you some history that others may know too. I mean, I believe, for example, this fund was literally initially seeded with a bond issue in the 1980s as part of Kim Wallace's efforts. But I will show you for work session, depending when that is, sort of the latest portfolio snapshot and that kind of thing. There's this fund here. AFA 1 also has a small operating account connected to the program, but I'll provide all that information to you.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Treasurer, I have a question that's not really germane right now. It sort of is, but could you provide us with an update on the status of the ABLE program?
Yes, and so it's a timely question. Literally on March 10th, we'll be signing an agreement with Bangor Savings Bank to provide that product in state. And just if I could very briefly for the committee, ABLE accounts are federally enabled products for persons with disabilities. If they have a disability, they're able to save money through a financial account without risking Social Security benefits. And also thanks to a law passed by Senator Libby last session, unanimous bill, also without risking certain state benefits and without being subject to Medicaid clawbacks. And the products have been on the market nationally for several years, and any Maine person could always buy them through another state network. But we've been working for a long time with Bangor Savings Bank to launch that particular product in state. And it would not be an investment instrument like other states offer. It would be a simple transactional, basically a transactional savings account. But we wanted to make sure our consumers had the dignity of a brick and mortar experience in state with a Maine bank. So March 10th, we're signing the contract.
That's great. And those savings will be able to be used for limited purposes like housing, basic needs, not for whatever. There's parameters around how those savings can be used. Is that correct?
Yes, I would say they are rather broad. So education might count, a vehicle might count. And if you think about it, this is basically a simpler, easier way to have a special needs trust. It's a way to almost to democratize that. But yes, there would be, must be for qualified expenses, qualified considered broadly.
Great, thank you. I didn't expect such a rapid answer, but that's great. Any other questions for Treasurer Beck? Okay, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Senator.
Lucky for me, we have some staff who are on the ball here and have instructed me that I made a mistake with the retirement system item. Apparently, Commissioner Sawschuk is here to speak to, if you look at your agenda, language part KKK as well as language part LLL. I thought Commissioner Figueroa had covered that, but I was mistaken. So we have Commissioner Sawschuk here. I thought you were here early for your transportation testimony later. So please accept my apology. Commissioner Sawschuk, go right ahead.
Thank you very much, Senator Breen. I am excited for the 3:30 presentation as well, but
and I know you're the kind of guy who would be early. So, I was thinking that.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you. Good afternoon, Senator Breen, Representative Peirce, and members of the Joint Standing Committee on Appropriations and Financial Affairs, Senator Rafferty and Representative Sylvester, and members of the Joint Standing Committee on Labor and Housing. My name is Mike Sawschuk, and I'm the Commissioner of the Department of Public Safety. I'm here today to testify in support of the biennial budget LD 221. As Governor Mills said, at a time when Maine people are hurting, when small businesses are struggling to keep their doors open, when the ranks of the unemployed have swelled, and when we are fighting a deadly virus all around us, we are proposing balanced budgets as required by the Constitution that continues efficiencies, good fiscal management, and curtailments to cover projected revenue shortfalls for all 3 fiscal years. They focus on combating the COVID-19 pandemic by continuing to rebuild the state's public health infrastructure and protecting essential healthcare, education, and life-saving services. They do not change Maine tax rates, and they maintain the Budget Stabilization Fund. With a future made unpredictable due to the ongoing pandemic, these budgets make good on the promise of government, which is to protect and support the well-being of our people and institutions. DPS was established to serve the people by providing, coordinating, and leading a responsive and comprehensive public safety system to protect their lives, rights, and properties. This broad mission is accomplished with 625 positions spread across 10 bureaus. The bureaus are Administration, Capitol Police, Consolidated Emergency Communications, Emergency Medical Services, Fire Marshal's Office, Gambling Control, Highway Safety, Maine Criminal Justice Academy, Maine Drug Enforcement Agency, and the Maine State Police. DPS has 2 language sections to discuss today, which are listed under the retirement system, Maine Public Employees. Both of these sections clarify the various job categories within DPS that are eligible to participate in special plans of the Maine Public Retirement Plan. Maine Public Employees Retirement Plan, my apologies. Under these special plans, a computation of benefits is such that a person may retire at age 55 with either 10, 20, or 25 years of credible service. Part KKK on page 47 of the language section clarifies the various job categories within the Consolidated Emergency Communications Bureau of DPS that are eligible to participate in the 1998 special plan. When eligible positions were previously added to the plan, the emergency dispatch system administrators were mistakenly omitted. This language clarification adds these positions to the 1998 special plan. Part LLL, also on page 47, is amended to clarify job classifications in the Fire Marshal's office within DPS that are eligible to participate in these special retirement plans. The Assistant State Fire Marshal in charge of investigations position was recently created and filled, and this clarification would add that position to the special plan. This amendment would also add the recently created position of Assistant State Fire Marshal in charge of inspections to the list of job categories that are eligible to participate in the 1998 special plan. It is recommended that the current wording of the amendment be revised to reflect the indicator of investigations and inspections to ensure that the recently created positions of Assistant State Fire Marshal in charge of investigations and in charge of inspections be referenced appropriately in each special plan. This concludes my testimony. I would be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you, Commissioner. Looks like Representative Millett has a question.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just had a question to Commissioner Sawchuk and through him to the retirement system. When we've added to these special early retirement plans, either retroactively or with adding new titles, it often raises the question of, are we doing anything to violate the constitutional amendment in the late 90s relative to unfunded actuarial liability? So I just wondered if you would, or have you vetted that with Maine PERS? And are we in fact increasing the number of positions, bringing new people in under the early retirement option? Just a request for vetting the language with Maine PERS.
I have not, sir, but it's an excellent question. I'm happy to follow up with the retirement system to get those answers to you in a timely fashion.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Commissioner Sawchuk? I am not seeing any. Again, Commissioner, thank you for hanging in there. I'm sorry that I overlooked you initially, and we look forward to seeing you again a little later.
Absolutely, no worries. Thank you very much for having me. I'll be back in an hour or so. Thank you.
Thank you. Next will be the University of Maine New Ventures program. And we have Gilda Nardone here. And Gilda, if you could unmute yourself and turn on your camera. There she is.
I am.
Welcome.
Thank you. And thank you all for your service. I know this is an intense time for you as you go through the budget. Senators Breen and Rafferty, Representatives Peirce and Sylvester, and members of the Joint Standing Committees on Appropriation and Financial Affairs and Labor and Housing. I'm Gilda Nardone, Executive Director of New Ventures Maine. I live in Brunswick, and I'm here today to speak on behalf of New Ventures Maine's general fund allocation within the University of Maine system's biennial budget requests for fiscal years 2022 and 2023. It's on page A489. As some of you may be aware, our organization was created through state legislation in 1977 as a pilot program to serve displaced homemakers. And from our beginning, we've been based within UMA and the University of Maine system. Our name was later changed to Maine Centers for Women Working Community, and in 2015 to New Ventures Maine, to reflect our expanded scope and reach of services and target populations. Although our services and our names have evolved over the years, over these past 42 years actually, our mission has remained constant, to help Maine people succeed in the changing economy and to achieve economic security for themselves and their families. As you all are very well aware, this past year has been challenging as our state and nation have been responding to the health, economic, and social impacts of the COVID-19 pandemic. Because New Ventures Maine was already delivering some of our classes online, we were able to adapt quickly to offer all of our classes and individual advising virtually statewide at flexible day and evening hours. We provided and partnered with other organizations to ensure that Maine people received the critical services, resources, and support they needed to navigate these uncertain times, and also to begin to plan for a more secure financial future. More specifically, in fiscal year 2020, we provided comprehensive services in the following ways. We helped 632 aspiring entrepreneurs and small business owners weather the pandemic and build resilience by providing access to information and resources, business advising, and training and tools for expanding their digital presence and marketing. We assisted 241 unemployed and low-wage workers whose jobs were impacted by COVID-19 adjust to the changing job market, retool their skills, set new career goals, and access workforce training and education. And we helped 415 economically vulnerable individuals and families manage their financial situations by providing financial education and match savings programs to cover unexpected expenses and other financial goals, and assisting them virtually again to file their income taxes and access tax credits and economic impact payments. As our state continues to grapple with the impact of the pandemic and racial, gender, and economic inequities, faces the challenges of our changing demographics and workforce, and moves forward with economic recovery and development, our organization is well positioned to be a valuable resource to adults in work-life transition, for families seeking financial stability, to aspiring entrepreneurs wanting to contribute to their own and their community's economic development, to employers looking for well-trained and qualified employees, and to you as policymakers looking for creative solutions to building a strong Maine economy. As a statewide outreach and education program of UMA and the University of Maine system, and co-located on many of the campuses and centers of the system, we're uniquely positioned to help adults start or return to college, complete their degrees and workforce credentials, and successfully transition to the workplace, assist aspiring entrepreneurs to develop a solid business plan, access financing and other resources, and sustain and grow their businesses, to help individuals and families develop skills to manage their money, reduce debt, improve their credit, and provide match savings for emergency needs and future asset goals, such as home and car ownership and repair, and business startup and expansion. This includes our collaboration with Cash Maine, providing free tax assistance and asset building resources at locations across the state. And last tax season, we served over 4,700 tax filers. This state allocation provides a critical 59% of our annual operating budget. The remainder of our budget is generated through a combination of foundation grants, federal contracts, individual and business contributions, and fee-for-service activities. This allocation would remain at the current FY21 level with no additional increase. We very much appreciate the state of Maine's investment in our services over the years, over the years. We are proud to be an integral part of our state's workforce and entrepreneurship ecosystems, and we're prepared and positioned to be a part and to assist with implementation of the state's economic recovery and economic development strategies. Our role is really in providing access and preparing a diverse and educated workforce for careers in high demand jobs, supporting entrepreneurship and growing small businesses, particularly in rural areas of the state, advancing the financial well-being of Maine families, and strengthening partnerships that build a strong and equitable Maine economy in all regions of our state. We're very disappointed that our advisory council isn't able to host our biannual reception for legislators at the Senator, which has traditionally been a great opportunity for you all to meet and to talk with our graduates about the impact of our services. Two of our graduates, Karen Garland Kidder from Farmington and Sophia Hewitt Bailey from Lewiston, weren't able to be with me today in front of you personally, but will be submitting written testimony. Karen is a graduate of our career planning program, an adult learner who graduated with her associate's degree in nursing from UMA, and currently employed as a clinical program coordinator in Farmington with the Healthy Community Coalition. Sophia is a graduate of our microenterprise program, owner of the Caribbean Life Grocery, and also more recently, Jeff's Jamaican Cuisine, also in Lewiston. And I hope you get a chance to read their testimony, and would invite you to visit our website to see both Karen and Sophia's and other graduate success stories and our annual reports. We're happy to be a resource to you at any time for your constituents, so please reach out to us. Thank you for your time. Either I or Samantha Warren are happy to answer any questions now or at the work session. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Nardone. Any questions for Ms. Nardone about New Ventures Maine? I don't see any.
All right.
I miss going to your graduation, so I'm looking
Yes.
forward to when we can.
We are looking forward to that as well. It's been satisfying to be able to reach more people delivering services virtually, but we miss the in-person opportunity to have our graduates build networks with each other and with others like yourself. Thanks.
Thank you for joining us today.
Sure.
Okay, let's see. The last person we have is John Rohde, who is here to speak on the items related to the Workers' Compensation Board. Mr. Rohde, there he is.
Thank you, Senator Breen. Good
Thank you for
afternoon,
joining us.
Senator Breen, Representative Peirce, members of the Joint Standing Committee on Appropriations and Financial Affairs, and good afternoon, Senator Rafferty and Representative Sylvester, and members of the Joint Standing Committee on Labor and Housing. My name is John Rohde. I am the Executive Director of the Workers' Compensation Board, and I am here today to testify in favor of the board's portion of LD 221, the 2022-23 biennial budget. I'll start with a little background. The board is a quasi-independent agency. And as discussed by Governor Mills, the board developed this biennial budget at a time when Maine people are hurting, small businesses are struggling, and we are still dealing with the deadly COVID-19 pandemic, which in addition to everything else it's done, has made the future even more difficult to predict. Consistent with its mission, the board, and especially its budget subcommittee, worked diligently to craft a budget that serves the employees and employers of the state fairly and expeditiously, as required by its mission statement. The board is managed by a 7-member board of directors who are appointed by the governor. The 3 members represent labor, 3 represent management, and the executive director, my position, serves as chair of the board. The board does not receive any general fund money. Its revenue is derived from annual assessments paid by employers. The amount of money the board can generate through its assessment is limited by a statutory assessment cap, which can be found at 39A MRSA section 154 subsection 6. The legislature amended the assessment cap most recently in 2016. That amendment, which increased the assessment cap from 11.2 million to 13 million, was intended to cover anticipated needs for 4 years, which it did. The budget plan contained in LD 221 was developed in the board's budget subcommittee and is designed to ensure the board will meet its statutory obligations. During its deliberations, the subcommittee considered different funding options for the 22-23 biennial budget. Initially, the subcommittee considered addressing the assessment cap, which is due for reconsideration. However, in light of the pandemic and in an effort to achieve unanimous support for the budget within the agency, the subcommittee agreed to defer discussion about the assessment cap. Instead, funds from the board's reserve account will be used to pay the difference between the assessment cap and projected expenditures. And no, I didn't spell them out here. Those amounts are $195,931 in fiscal year 22 and $366,622 in fiscal year 23. In October, the full board considered the budget plan developed in the subcommittee. While the 22-23 biennial budget was crafted to obviate the need for a vote on an assessment cap increase this year, some directors expressed concern that a vote in favor of the proposed budget might somehow obligate them to later vote to increase the assessment cap at a later meeting. The board also discussed how this budget might impact employers and the fact that there is not a one-to-one correlation between the board's allotment and its assessment. For instance, the board's allotment for the current fiscal year, 2021, is larger than it was in 2020, but the assessment for insured employers actually decreased by 4.65% this year. And based on the board's cautious management of its budget during this fiscal year, we project there will be savings that can be applied to reduce the assessment when it is issued this spring. Ultimately, the motion to submit the budget before you today passed the board by a 4-3 vote. With respect to what's in the budget document itself, the board's budget is divided into 3 programs, each of which I will briefly summarize for you. The first program can be found on page A492, and that's Administration Account 0183. This program funds the operations of the Workers' Compensation Board, including administration, the administration of the board and its operations, including budget, legal, technology, regional office supervision, medical and rehabilitation services, claims management, and coverage. It also funds dispute resolution. We have 5 regional offices throughout the state: Augusta, Bangor, Caribou, Lewiston, and Portland, where troubleshooting, mediation, and formal hearings take place. Dispute resolution also includes the board's appellate division, which is authorized to hear and decide appeals from decisions issued by administrative law judges. The board also has a monitoring, audit, and enforcement unit covered by this account. The board monitors the timeliness with which certain forms and payments are being made, provides training for employers, insurers, self-insured employers, claim adjusters, and administrators, and conducts compliance audits to ensure all obligations under the Workers' Compensation Act are met. Through its abuse investigation unit, the board enforces administrative penalty provisions contained in the Workers' Compensation Act. Finally, in this portion of the board's budget, our Worker Advocate Program. The Worker Advocate Program provides legal representation without cost to injured workers pursuing claims before the Workers' Compensation Board. In order for an injured worker to qualify for advocate representation, the injury must have occurred on or after January 1st, 1993. The worker must have participated in the board's troubleshooter program. The worker must have failed to informally resolve the dispute. And finally, the worker must not have retained private legal counsel. There is one initiative in this account, and that can be found on page A492. This initiative provides funding for increased rent costs and associated stay cap charges. Those amounts are $83,566 in fiscal year 22 and $85,021 in fiscal year 23. The next 2 programs are considerably smaller. The Employment Rehabilitation Program, account 0195, can be found on page A493. This program, the Employment Rehabilitation Fund, is mandated by statute and is used to make initial payments to ensure injured workers have access to employment rehabilitation services. In a nutshell, if the employer and insurer don't pay for rehab services upfront, the employee can apply to the board and we will fund those programs initially. There are no initiatives for this program. The final program is account 0751, also found on page A493. This funds the Workers' Compensation Board of Directors, which, as I mentioned previously, includes the 3 members of representing labor and 3 who represent management. The per diem and expenses of the 6 labor and management members are funded in this program. My salary and expenses are covered in the 0183 account, and there are no initiatives for this program either. And with that, I thank you for your time this afternoon, and I am happy to try to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Rohde. Any questions for Mr. Rohde, Representative Peirce?
Thank you so much. Mr. Rohde, at the bottom of the first page, you referenced some numbers that weren't part of your, I wondered if you could just repeat those. I didn't have a pencil in hand when you started talking about them.
Yes, sorry.
You.
The difference between the board statutory assessment cap, which is 13 million, and the budget request for 22 and 23, and those numbers are for fiscal year 22, $195,931, and for fiscal year 23, $366,622.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
Any other questions for Mr. Rohde? Not seeing any. So thank you very much for your testimony and for waiting. We really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
We do have one member of the public who's here to offer some public testimony on some of the items we just heard. And that is Joby Thoyalil, and he is going to join us in a moment. I'm going to move him over to our panel to take some public comment. Hi there, welcome.
Hi, thank you, Senator Breen. Good afternoon, Senators Breen and Rafferty, Representatives Peirce and Sylvester, members of the Joint Standing Committees on Appropriations and Financial Affairs and on Labor and Housing. My name is Joby Thoyalil, and I'm a senior policy advocate with Maine Equal Justice. I also help to coordinate the Maine Coalition on Racial Equity, or CORE for short. And I'm testifying today on behalf of CORE, specifically on the portion of the governor's proposed biennial budget relating to the Permanent Commission on the Status of Racial, Indigenous, and Maine Tribal Populations. For full disclosure, I also had the honor of serving as a commissioner on that commission. But as I said, I'm speaking today on behalf of CORE, and I'm not speaking on behalf of the Permanent Commission. So the Maine Coalition on Racial Equity is a group of Maine organizations committed to advancing racial equity and justice in Maine through legislative education and trainings and through advocacy and government accountability. The members of CORE wish to express our concern that the biennial budget does not show a commitment to addressing racial inequality. The events of 2020, both the COVID-19 pandemic and the protests over police killings of Black people like George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, and Ahmaud Arbery, opened the eyes of many in Maine to just how pervasive and harmful systemic racism is in our society today. We are glad that Governor Mills has recognized the importance of creating a more just and welcoming Maine for people of all backgrounds. Unfortunately, this budget document falls short of meeting those aspirations. First and foremost, the budget is a continuation of the status quo. While it does not present significant cuts to state programs, it does little to increase investment in services and in communities that bear the brunt of the dual pandemics of COVID-19 and structural racism. When we know the status quo contains so many racial disparities and inequities, a status quo budget merely perpetuates those problems. This is not merely a theoretical exercise. In September, the Permanent Commission at the request of legislative leadership, examined the outstanding bills from the 129th legislature and recommended passage of a package of bills which would help improve racial equity in our state. Most of those bills have been reintroduced in some form this session, and several have been modified to better target those racial disparities, as was recommended by the Permanent Commission. You have the opportunity to pass them this year, but to do that will take resources and a willingness to invest in the eradication of structural racism in our state. We appreciate that some money was allocated in the governor's budget to address public health equity, but public health is only one of the many systems that are rife with disparities. Moreover, we believe the best solutions for eliminating racial disparities will come from partnerships between the state and impacted people. And we encourage you to consider funding bills that take this approach. One bill submitted this session, LR 55, intends to take this approach on public health equity specifically, and we encourage you to consider it closely. Finally, the members of CORE were dismayed to see that the governor's proposed budget does not provide funding for the operation of the Permanent Commission itself. The volunteer members of the Permanent Commission have been able to accomplish a lot in a short time, but their time, labor, and expertise are not limitless. The September report requested by legislative leadership was only made possible through the temporary assistance of legislative staff. The governor and the legislature have repeatedly referenced the work of the commission and pointed to it as an important tool in addressing racial disparities in our state. We agree that the Permanent Commission is an important tool, and we know that it has a lot of potential, but it cannot fulfill that potential without ongoing funding for support staff. The Permanent Commission requested that monies to hire staff be included in the budget and have submitted a commission bill to fulfill that same request, as Commissioner Fortman referenced earlier today. We urge you to support the commission by honoring its request and including that funding in the budget. I'll conclude by saying that racial disparities are the result of centuries of policy choices which have created a system that disadvantages people of color and ultimately holds us all back. Centuries of discrimination can't be undone overnight, but the good news is that we can undo them. It just takes a sustained and deliberate commitment to build a just and more equitable Maine. That commitment means investing public funds to address inequalities, allocating public funds in a way that is equitable and informed by communities of color, and funding institutions like the Permanent Commission so that it can fulfill its mission of creating and improving opportunities and eliminating disparities for historically disadvantaged racial, indigenous, and tribal populations in the state. Thank you, and I would be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you. Any questions from either of the committees? Representative Sylvester.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you for being here, Joby. My question was, in the bill that's forthcoming, what is the ask that is in that bill, you know, in terms of providing staff and those sorts of things? What sort of a total are we looking at there roughly? And if you don't have it.
So I haven't seen the language. I know that the request that was made by the Permanent Commission to be included in the governor's proposed budget was roughly just under 500,000 a year. So for each year in the biennium, and that was for several staff in mind.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Sure.
Any other questions? Representative Fay.
I'm trying to figure out the best way to ask this question. Is there a list, and this is for the work session and maybe not specifically directed at you, Joby, but is there a list of other commissions of this type that have staff and funding? It'd be nice to see some examples maybe that could be built off of. And that may be a question for Maureen or someone, but I'd be curious about that.
The only way I can answer that, I don't know of a list, but I know that in our conversations within the commission itself, we've often referenced the Maine Human Rights Commission as a working commission that has, because it has required duties that require staffing, it has a budget for staffing. And so we've often, and because the topic, the subject area is somewhat overlaps with what we are looking at, that we've often referenced that commission.
I appreciate that. Yeah, just kind of looking for other examples that may have happened either currently or in the past, I think would be super helpful.
Any other questions? Okay. Thank you very much. We really appreciate your patience. Sorry we were having to take public testimony at the very end, but thank you for hanging in there.
No problem at all. Thank you very much.
All right. So I'm hoping that this is the time where I like our analyst to come on. Maureen, if you wouldn't mind joining us, so I can thank you profusely for your help in keeping me on track today. And also just preview what we have next at 3:30, I believe.
At 3:30, you have a joint hearing with the Transportation Committee. So that will be equally fun.
Okay. So we will say thank you and so long to our folks from Labor and Housing, and we will look forward to your report back. When is the date for that, Maureen?
Oh, it is. What committee is? Oh, LBHS. That is March 18th.
March 18th. Thank you. So we'll take care and we look forward to your report back. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having us, Commissioner Breen
Thank you.
and Commissioner Peirce.
Thank you very
Oh, we
much.
got promoted to commissioner. Woo!
And I like the upgrade.
That's right. That'll come with that. Your check will be in the mail.
Excellent. Thank you.
Have a good day.
So we have a break now until 3:30 where we're going to be joined by some folks from transportation. I don't think a huge number, but in any event, we will, I think maybe we'll just go put our screens on mute and take your camera off, and then we'll be back at 3:30. Thank you.
Welcome everyone to the 3:30 block of the AFA Biennial Public Hearing for Transportation. We're going to give a few minutes for a few more people to join us. Mainly some members of the Transportation Committee and some of our testifiers from the administration. Shouldn't take but a minute or so. So good afternoon again. Waiting to see if some members of the Transportation Committee are going to be able to join us this afternoon. They are in committee doing public hearings as well. We weren't going to have a full complement of that committee, but I do think we hope that maybe a couple of people might flow over. So I'm just going to give it one more minute, and then we'll proceed ahead, knowing that they can certainly get caught back up when they review the budget. Thank you for your patience.
Madam Chair?
Yes, thank you.
I just spoke with the clerk for the Transportation Committee, and she said that she hasn't heard from anyone that they would be joining us.
Wonderful. I appreciate you giving that update. So we will forge ahead. Welcome again. This is I am Teresa Peirce, the House Chair of AFA. This is the 3:30 block for the biennial budget public hearing on transportation. It's the last one of ours this week. We're looking forward to hearing from a number of members talking about the transportation budget, which will include Commissioner Figueroa from DAFS, Commissioner Sawchuk from the Department of Public Safety, and from the Secretary of State's office, Ms. Moriart, I hope I'm saying that right, and then Mr. LaChance. So we'll start off with Commissioner Figueroa and her testimony. Oh, we have introduced ourselves already on AFA, so we won't reintroduce ourselves. We're all back. And look forward to hearing from the commissioner.
I'm sorry, I was giving myself the minutes that it takes for you to introduce yourself. So
of course, yeah, sorry.
Came flying around the corner and plunked into my chair. Here I am.
You're looking good. You're looking good.
All right. Good afternoon. Good afternoon, Senator Breen, Representative Peirce, and members of the Joint Standing Committee on Appropriations and Financial Affairs, and Senator Diamond, Representative Martin, and members of the Joint Standing Committee on Transportation. My name is Kirsten Figueroa. I am the Commissioner of the Department of Administrative and Financial Services. I am here today to testify in support of the fiscal year 22-23 biennial budget bill, LD 221, specifically Part N. As Governor Mills has said, at a time when Maine people are hurting, when small businesses are struggling to keep their doors open, when the ranks of the unemployed have swelled, and when we are fighting a deadly virus all around us, we are proposing balanced budgets as required by the Constitution that continue efficiencies, good fiscal management, and curtailments to cover projected revenue shortfalls for all 3 fiscal years. They focus on combating the COVID-19 pandemic by continuing to rebuild the state's public health infrastructure and protecting essential health care, education, and life-saving services. They do not change Maine tax rates, and they maintain the Budget Stabilization Fund. With a future made unpredictable due to the ongoing pandemic, these budgets make good on the promise of government, which is to protect and support the well-being of our people and institutions. Part N is on page 18 of the language document. This part authorizes the Department of Administrative and Financial Services to enter into financing arrangements in fiscal years 22 and 23 for the acquisition of motor vehicles for the Department of Public Safety. This will purchase approximately 37 pursuit vehicles and 1 non-pursuit vehicle. And this concludes my testimony. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. I think we'll go through all the testimony and then we'll save the committee questions for the end. And so that leads us to Commissioner Sawchuk. Welcome back.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. I'm glad to be here. Good afternoon, Senator Breen, Representative Peirce, and members of the Joint Standing Committee on Appropriations and Financial Affairs, Senator Diamond, Representative Martin, and members of the Joint Standing Committee on Transportation. My name is Mike Sawchuk, and I'm the Commissioner of the Department of Public Safety. I'm here today to testify in support of the biennial budget LD 221. Out of respect for your time, I am going to skip the overall budget message, which Commissioner Figueroa just mentioned. Department overview: DPS was established to serve the people by providing, coordinating, and leading a responsive and comprehensive public safety system to protect their lives, rights, and properties. This broad mission is accomplished with 625 positions spread across 10 bureaus. The bureaus are Administration, Capitol Police, Consolidated Emergency Communications, Emergency Medical Services, Fire Marshal, Gambling Control, Highway Safety, Maine Criminal Justice Academy, Maine Drug Enforcement Agency, and the Maine State Police. As Maine experienced the impact of COVID-19 and agencies were directed to implement curtailments, the bureaus within DPS reviewed all expenditures to determine areas where savings could be achieved. DPS employees were asked to share any thoughts they had for possible cost-saving measures that could be implemented. The DPS family rose to this challenge, and many innovative ideas were shared, which were implemented and result in the savings reflected in the initiatives we will discuss today. State Police. The Maine State Police program begins on page A457. The Maine State Police provides full law enforcement services to areas that do not have police departments. Troopers respond to all manners of calls for service, such as any police department would. Troopers also patrol the rural roads, interstate system, and Maine Turnpike, enforcing motor vehicle laws and responding to accidents. Maine State Police detectives investigate all homicides outside of Portland and Bangor, as well as other major crimes. The Maine State Police operates a crime lab, computer crimes lab, and a commercial vehicle unit. They maintain the state's criminal history records and sex offender registry. They also provide many other specialized teams and law enforcement services to the state of Maine. The first initiative reduces the funding for technology costs through the Office of Information Technology. These reductions were the result of a detailed review of OIT costs and services being provided. Non-critical services were reduced or removed to achieve savings. Savings were achieved by removing landlines, fax lines, and reducing the number of OIT personnel working on Maine State Police applications. The decrease is $407,073 in general fund all other for FY22 and $400,511 for FY23. There's also a highway fund reduction that will be discussed under the highway fund budget at a later date. You will see entries labeled as highway fund informational throughout the budget document, and these will be discussed at a later date. The next initiative changes the funding source for some general operational expenses to align with available resources. This allows these operational expenses to be funded out of other special revenue funds. The other special revenue funds, all others, increased by $51,252 in both years. The next initiative at the top of page A458 provides one-time funding for the purchase of DNA test kits through the Federal Expenditures Fund. In FY22, we were able to make these necessary purchases by using funding available through the DNA grant. This increases the Federal Expenditures Fund by $65,961 in FY22 only. The next initiative provides funds for the approved reclassification of 2 planning and research associate 2 positions to criminal intelligence analysts effective July 26,